Can you use your Xbox as a PC? I'll show you some things you can do and some things you can't. Fans of this highly anticipated Xbox title are gonna be disappointed. And do Xbox players buy games anymore? Let's discuss. So I feel like there are two kinds of people when it comes to their opinions on Game Pass. There are people like me who think it's a really awesome deal, it's exciting as a gamer, and then there are people who think that it's going to destroy the video game industry as we know it and cause the downfall of the entire Earth and civilization. Whatever camp you fall into, it's clear that this is Xbox's strategy going forward, going all in on Game Pass. That's going to be their main shtick for at least this generation. And critics of Game Pass say that people who have Game Pass, they're not gonna buy games, right? And because people aren't gonna buy games, developers aren't gonna want to make games anymore because they're not gonna make any money. It's all just gonna go to Microsoft and cheapen the whole video game industry. There's even some people that say that Microsoft wants a future where you can't buy an individual game at all. You'll never be able to own a game. And Phil Spencer says, no guys, that's not it. In a recent interview with the New York Times, he says the retail market continues to be very strong and grow. So let's make sure we offer our customers choice between subscriptions and transactions. He goes on to make a couple of points. One, he says you can buy every game on Game Pass if you wanted to, and that sets us apart from subscription services like Netflix or Spotify. You can listen to the music as part of your subscription, but you can't buy individual items. I mean, on Netflix, every now and then I see DVDs like in Walmart or Target of Netflix series and movies. It's just weird, but typically you can't buy Netflix movies or things from other subscription services like you can on Game Pass. And again, that option is nice, especially when it comes to third-party games. I don't know if the first-party Xbox Studios games are ever gonna leave Game Pass, but third-party games, they leave the service all the time. On the 15th of every month, usually, we lose about 5 or 6 games, but you have the opportunity to buy them before they leave if you really like them that much, if you can't live without them. And at the end of the day, I think the misconception is, from the outside looking in, that every Xbox player has Xbox Game Pass. I'm sure at some point in the future, most people who own an Xbox will also be Game Pass subscribers, but for right now, that's just not the case. Last time we checked, there was about 20-ish million, 23 million subscribers to Game Pass, and that is not even half of the people who own Xboxes or the amount of Xbox Ones and Xbox Series consoles out in the world right now. And on top of that, not every game is coming to Game Pass. If you wanted to play Tales of Arise, for example, it's not on Game Pass. You'd have to buy that if you're an Xbox owner. A Far Cry 6, again, not on Game Pass. That's something that you would have to buy. So I think the misconception is that we only play games on Game Pass. I play a lot of games on Game Pass, don't get me wrong, but I still buy games. I still have other consoles too that I buy games. Now, this might be a little bit naive of me, not knowing what entirely goes on in the development process and making a game and shipping it out, but I feel like it'd be pretty sweet to be one of these studios under the Xbox Studios umbrella. Because if you make a game, your jobs are not dependent on how many copies that you sell. If it's going on Game Pass, it's more about how many people are playing your game and how many people are subscribing to the service because of your game, rather than how many units sold. And people are gonna say, you know, if you make a good game, then it's gonna sell well, that shouldn't be a problem. And usually that is the case, right? But not always. I mean, Irrational Games ended up going defunct, even though it shipped out BioShock, one of the best games of all time. Returnal, nominated for Game of the Year, didn't sell that too well for a game as good as that. So in a perfect world, good games, they sell millions and millions no matter what, but that's not always the case. I would like to know more information about how third-party developers get paid, right? And hopefully it is a fair compensation, a fair trade for having their game on Game Pass. It's not just, oh, a bunch of more people are gonna play your game and you'll get a new audience, right? Hopefully they're financially being compensated for that. I want them to be fair. I like, you know, Microsoft is a big corporation, but I like to think that they treat their business partners with respect. I hope that's true, but obviously I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel, so all I can do is theorize and hope. Now, 2022 is a huge year for games. There are a ton of games coming out across all platforms, and one of those games is Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. It's been being teased on the Xbox Game Pass Coming Soon tab for a really long time now. It's supposed to come out in April, and honestly, I'm super hyped for this game. It looks really awesome. They have had some controversies as of late. They kind of dipped their toe into seeing, hey, we're going to put NFTs in the game, and then they quickly kind of backpedaled on that when there was some backlash online and from the fans. But we have some more disappointing news regarding the game, and that's instead of coming out in April, it's now going to be delayed further. How much? It's going to be delayed apparently until December, and that is a pretty disappointing bit of news. And for me, especially, I mean, Starfield is supposed to be coming out in November. I don't know if I'll have the time to juggle Starfield and Stalker 2. I just don't know if I could do it, in addition to all the other games that are supposed to be coming out this year. A new statement from the development team says, those additional 7 months of development are needed to fulfill our vision and achieve the desired state of the game. Stalker 2 is the biggest project in the history of GSC, and it requires thorough testing and polishing. We are convinced that development should take as long as necessary, especially in the case of such a project. Disappointing, right? But if you need more time, I would personally prefer it if you took more time when it comes to making games, right? Instead of shipping out this game before it's actually ready. I think we're a little bit sick of that as fans, as gamers. But especially if you're an Xbox fan, Stalker 2, it's gonna be exclusive, right? It's timed, but it's gonna be an Xbox title for a little bit. We're gonna get first crack at it, right? It's disappointing as an Xbox fan because that was one of the games that we knew we had a definitive date on, right? We had Stalker coming in the spring in April, we had Redfall coming in the summer, and then we had Starfield coming in the fall for the holiday season. And now that that's being delayed, it kind of makes those first 6 months of 2022 until Redfall comes out, if that doesn't get delayed as well. We do have some stuff to look forward to, like we covered in a couple videos ago, Rainbow Six Extraction coming to Game Pass, GoldenEye may be coming to Xbox as well. But in terms of Xbox exclusives, there's not a lot for this first half of the year that we know of. I think Crossfire is supposed to be coming sometime in the first half of 22. I don't know too much about this, but Arc 2 is apparently supposed to be coming in sometime in 2022. We don't have any details about that, so it might be pushed back a little bit further than that. But Stalker 2, disappointing bit of news. I understand that they need more time to kind of polish the whole experience, but it does kind of suck. Now, in a previous video, I talked about a story where a Reddit user used his Xbox to open up a FaceTime link that was sent to his email and use FaceTime on his TV through his Xbox. And that kind of got me thinking, like, how much work that you need a computer for can you actually do on your console, your Xbox Series X, S, Xbox One, whatever. So I decided to test some things out for myself, and a huge part of this revolves around Microsoft Edge, your browser that comes on your Xbox consoles. And of course, to start out with, I plugged a keyboard and a mouse directly into my Xbox, and I fired it up. I wanted to see where it would take me. So what you will notice when you boot up your Xbox is that you can't use your keyboard and mouse to navigate your Xbox's dashboard, at least I don't think so. So what I ended up doing was I used my controller to navigate over to Microsoft Edge, and once I was in Microsoft Edge, the keyboard and the mouse, it worked perfectly, no issues whatsoever, which was a little bit surprising to me. I know it's common knowledge at this point that you can use a mouse and keyboard with Xbox, but I had some reservations, especially after my experience trying to use my USB mic with my Xbox. It was super frustrating, and I was expecting there to be a lot more loopholes and things that would trip me up when trying to use a mouse and keyboard. So first off, I wanted to try something simple. I needed to respond to an email that my voiceover coach sent regarding when we're gonna meet next. So I opened up Microsoft Edge, I went on over to Outlook on the browser, logged into my email, opened up the email, it displayed perfectly, and I got to work. I started typing out my response. And once I was done, I clicked send and it worked. Easy. Speaking of voiceover, my friend sent me over this roster, this talent roster that this casting director had put out on Twitter and said, hey, you should submit your stuff. That way, when a project pops up that they're casting that matches your specs, they'll reach out to you. I thought, perfect, I'll try to do it on my Xbox. So we already went over the fact that you can type things out and submit it just fine. But the first challenge for me was that they wanted me to include links to my demos. And my demos, I do have links for them. They're on SoundCloud. So I went over, opened up a new tab, went to my SoundCloud account. I was able to get a private shareable link and then put it over on the form for the talent roster. And I thought, hey, why not? Let me see if I could play some of the audio from these demos. And it did work.
A refreshing beer and a crisp, tasty apple. Two things that are pretty great on their own, but together, they're even better.
Here's where the next challenge came up. They wanted me to submit a PDF version of my resume. And when you go and you try to upload from your device, obviously that's not gonna work, right? You can't save PDF, Word, rich text files to your Xbox, and you definitely can't upload them, right? But because this form was on Google Forms, I was able to use my Google Drive to upload a copy of my resume that I had here and attach it to the form. So that was the first limitation I really kind of ran into, but because, thanks to Google, I was able to work around it. Next up, I wanted to try something stupid. I wanted to try playing Google Stadia or Google Stadia, whatever you call it. Because I was already logged into my Google account, I just went to the Stadia tab in the kind of, what do you call it? Like the Google menu where, where Docs, Gmail, all that stuff is. And I ended up signing up for a free trial, and I thought, hey, let's try Hitman. Let's try to see if it'll run on Google Stadia on my Xbox, or Google Stadia. I don't know how to pronounce it. And again, it worked, and it ran pretty smoothly, I'm not gonna lie. I hate to say it, but it was a little bit more consistent than my experience with Xbox Cloud Gaming. Don't kill me in the comments, but that's just the truth from my experience. Now, because I had successfully just played a game streaming to my Microsoft Edge browser on my Xbox, I wanted to take a little step further, right? My friend Jimmy, he said that PlayStation actually has a remote play feature, and I thought, let's see, because this would be hilarious if I could play PlayStation games via remote play on my Microsoft Edge browser on my Xbox console. And unfortunately, what I found out when I went over to the PlayStation Remote Play website is that you have to download a separate thing for it to function, right? They have an iOS app and they have an Android app, I think, or a Google Play app. So that kind of killed the dream of playing PlayStation games on my Xbox, but overall, I was pretty impressed with Microsoft Edge on the Xbox. Now, granted, a lot of the things I did in this video were pretty simple tasks, right? Sending an email, filling out a form, streaming a game, not too crazy. I also didn't try the video functions at all, like we talked about earlier with the guy using FaceTime on his Xbox, but I assume, that it functions pretty well. All the other Google stuff worked. Drive, Forms, Stadia. So I assume that would also apply to Google Meet as well to, video chat with your coworkers or your family member, things like that. And I wouldn't hate it if they kind of went this gaming console kind of PC hybrid thing. I think it'd be very convenient. Anyway, guys, that's all the news I have for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Ray if you're tuning in for the first time. I would greatly appreciate it if you went on over to Twitter and followed me at StayXboxReady. I'm also having my first giveaway. I'm giving away an Xbox Series X to one lucky viewer. More details on that coming soon, and we'll see you in the next video.